Our final 5-minute presentation this morning comes from Brooke, who you all know. Jan is going to talk on resilience and maritime and inland waterborne transport. Jan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Mark Major yesterday explained how the transport theme run by the Paris Process for Mobility and Climate is preparing a roadmap to take forward through the UNFCCC process into the wider process. So this engagement between non-state actors, stakeholders and governments as the climate change process moves forward, and particularly moving forward to COP23 later this year. The roadmap at the present time includes a series of what are called quick wins, and they are highlighting some of the key, if you like, take-home messages for the transport sector with regard to mitigation. So it's looking at changes in fuel type, improvements in efficiency and so on. At the moment, the roadmap doesn't include any quick wins for adaptation. And so we need to play a bit of game of catch-up here for the transport sector as a whole in terms of what we should be recommending that the global community is doing in terms of climate change adaptation. So as part of the work we've been doing on 178, I've been looking through some of the lessons there that might be more relevant to the transport sector as a whole, and have developed a series of 5 quick wins for each of existing transport infrastructure and new transport infrastructure. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly read each of those. But what I would like, the reason I'm standing here, is to try to encourage those of you that are involved in climate change adaptation that might want to contribute to or input to these quick wins to contact me, hopefully over the lunch break, and we can then continue in touch by email. So what I've picked up out of the adaptation processes that I've been involved in terms of quick wins for existing infrastructure, one relates to the importance of maintenance so that we maintain that infrastructure to retain adaptive capacity. A second relates to monitoring so that we understand the condition of our infrastructure on the one hand, and on the other how the climate is changing, so we have local information, locally derived information to inform decisions on adaptation, on when to adapt. A third relates to the preparation of contingency plans or disaster response plans, including education and training, not only involving workforce but also local community. Somebody earlier mentioned that the only way that the local community will be able to help the port get back on its feet is if they're able to access the port. And if everything's okay at home, because your focus is always at home first. I've included the idea of retrofitting existing infrastructure because we need to try and improve resilience and longevity of that infrastructure, but we also recognise that that's not always cost effective, it can be very expensive, it can carry a risk of maladaptation, and in some cases it's simply not affordable. So retrofitting is a kind of ideal but not necessarily the first port of call. And then also we'll hear a bit after lunch about working with nature and using nature-based solutions to improve resilience. So for existing infrastructure, I think those encapsulate at least some of the kind of broad principles of where we need to be going. For new infrastructure, we already heard a bit about this morning in terms of promoting enhanced flexibility in design, looking at adaptive management so that we're not so fixed, using historical information to inform future design. Promoting science and technology, again, somebody this morning mentioned that we're not very good at sharing. We answer a question and we solve a problem, but we're not very good at sharing that. Looking at reviewing and revising or preparing new design standards and construction codes, because many of the codes we're using within infrastructure weren't designed with climate change in mind. The fourth issue in relation to the new infrastructure has to do with the financing mechanisms. Again, it's been touched on this morning, is can we review and revise financing mechanisms more in line with those earlier comments. So about improving, increasing flexibility, looking more to adaptive management, looking to design something which can be modified and added to and strengthened or raised or whatever in future rather than from the outset. Looking at sharing good practice and looking at the design standards side of things. And finally, on new infrastructure, can we look at, and it's maybe more, maybe it's a more regional thing, but look at using what we know about climate change to ensure that wherever possible we don't locate vulnerable infrastructure in high-risk areas, and that might be through zoning policies or through permitting procedures, depending on the context in which that's happening. My question to you, and I realise it's difficult without the slides for you to answer them, but please do get in touch with me directly, is have I got anything fundamentally wrong there? And have we got anything missing? Are there other quick wins, general principles that we should be encouraging globally stakeholders, transport infrastructure stakeholders to adopt in order to adapt? So if you have an immediate interest, please just come and maybe give me your card or email address or something in the break. I can then send these out to you by email. We need to turn things around fairly quickly, but I'm really keen to take the opportunity of having everybody in the room to try to make sure that we pick up best practice on all of those things. So, as I say, please get in touch if you have something to offer.